So last time when we talked about presuppositions of NLP, we had gone through the first six presuppositions. I will just quickly run through them. Respect for other person's model of the world. Behavior and change should be evaluated in terms of context and ecology. Resistance in a person is a sign of lack of rapport. People are not their behaviors. Everyone is doing the best they can with the resources available to them. The last one that we talked about is calibrate on behavior. The most important part of a person is their behavior. So today I'm going to talk about the remaining eight presuppositions. And I'll start with this very important one, which is the map is not a territory. The words are not the event they represent. Right? Now, a very important concept behind this is this is related to the delete, distort, and generalize that I had shared in the first session, and also have been talking about this in the upcoming in the previous sessions. Is we always try and put something, whatever is happening outside of us, we try and understand that from the perspective of what it means to us, right? Now, if you consider the words that we are talking about, a very, very common word would be, I give an example of the word picnic, right? Now, picnic can mean different things to different people, where the dictionary meaning could be different. For me, for example, picnic could mean that I'm going out with my family and having a lunch in a park. For somebody else, it could be going out to the beach. For another person, it could be a different meaning. So the words that are out there, the vocabulary that's out there, right? That's essentially, it means different things to different people. So you can't assume that whatever is that you're thinking about is the exactly same thing that the other person is thinking about. Now, why it's called a map is not the territory. Now, a territory could be the place where you live in, but there can be different kinds of maps that can represent that territory. You could have a local map, you could have a larger area map. So there are multiple ways to represent the same territory. Similarly, there are multiple words. The same word can be represented uh, by in multiple ways. So we have to always recognize the fact that when we are saying something out there, not everybody will understand it exactly how you do. So you need to be a little more careful there. And that's a very, very common reason for miscommunication or reason for conflict is that we say something to a person and the person really takes it just the other way, right? Because they don't understand what you mean. Um, the next one, you are in charge of your mind and hence your results. Pretty self-explanatory, where whatever thoughts that you have in your mind, right, that will actually eventually come out in the reality that's around you. And this is also about what I had talked about as perception is projection. Now, if you consider anything that's going is when you're thinking of an event, you kind of uh, and see that or feel differently to them, and hence your activities or your actions that have come out based on what you're perceiving come out with the result. So you've probably noticed that if you're really motivated or you're really charged up, the results, you're really productive, highly productive. Or if you're not motivated, if you're depressed or you're not really feeling very good, your results show up. So whatever you're thinking, right, how you're thinking really makes a difference on the results that you get. So you need to be in charge of how you think. It's not an easy concept to understand, right? We have to and it ties in very well in with the next one. It says people have all the resources they need in order to get their desired results. Now you see, you've got results both in number 8 and number 9. Now, important thing is, for every person individually, right, they are in charge of their thoughts and hence their interpretation of what's going on. And there's the if you could look at the NLP communication model I talked about. So if you can kind change your internal filters, change the way you distort, change the way you delete, or change the way you generalize how things are going out there, and consider that what you believe can be different than what the reality is. Again, coming back to number 7, so they're all interrelated, right? So how you do interpret what's going on in your mind will change your state and your behavior, right? And it's important. Now this one, I always think that we can only contemplate we can only contemplate any imagination that we think we can do, right? The only thing that we can imagine we can do is what you can actually do. I'll say that in a different way, that your the way you imagine things, right? If you wanted to imagine that you're going to be a CEO of a particular organization, or you're going to get a particular car, or you're going to get maybe $1 million in the next 1 year, those kinds of thoughts, you will only be, and you would know in internally if that's really possible or not, right? You can only imagine as big as something that you can really get. So you will have an option to choose what choices you make, what actions you take, and what results you get, right? But you have that within inside you, right? You have the resources. You know it's going to be difficult. If you have to come out of your comfort zone, you need to do something different and get different results. So it's very important. 7, 8, 9, they're all related, right? Now, this number 10 is not really traditional NLP, right? But in what it means is, so if you consider an NLP practitioner, right, somebody who's practicing NLP, who's helping people out, so they would be doing certain kinds of things that are ecological, right? Number 2, behavior and context need to be evaluated in context of context of behavior, and change should be right in terms in the context and ecology, right? Now the procedures that an NLP practitioner does all increase wholeness. Now in a wholeness, if you consider it for yourself in that thinking, whatever you do, you need to look at the bigger picture. It cannot always be short term gain versus long term loss. So everything needs to be a win-win for a short term and a longer term. Your values need to be aligned. You need to be sure that whatever you're doing is aligned from your heart and mind. You really are doing it because it is going to make you whole. It's going to help you become more satisfied, more happier, more contented. So everything that you do using NLP, everything, it should actually increase wholeness within you. That's the purpose of this particular presupposition, right? Uh, the 11th one is one of the most important ones that we probably heard this so many times. There is only feedback. Now, a lot of times when we are doing certain things, we fail at getting the results we want, and then we think, oh my gosh, we failed. We are a failure. We can't do anything right. So all those negative thought patterns come. But what you have to realize is there is only feedback. What it means is that whenever you are doing something, or when you're talking to something, or you're in a situation, how you're reacting to it, or how you're responding to it, whatever response you get, or on whatever you get from the other side, it is basically a feedback. It's how you can get better. It's basically changing your thinking and moving out of your comfort zone. Now if you're not getting the results you want, what is it that giving that what's the feedback you're getting from what you're trying to do, right? That's the critical aspect, is what is the feedback you're getting. Now what does feedback mean? If want to break that word feedback, right? Feed is you're doing, giving something, and back is you're getting something. So you're feeding something and you're getting back something. So if you're feeding negative thoughts, you're actually going to get something that is negative. If you're feeding positive thoughts, there is going to be something that new creation happens. So it is also related to how you create things, right? How you create your results, how you create your desires coming to reality. How do you create your reality? So you have to think very differently on any actions you do. What is the feedback or what is the information you're getting that is going to help you create your next choice, bring your next action, right? Bring you closer to where you want to be. So we have to understand there is never a failure, right? You can fail 100 times. That doesn't mean you're a failure. It's only that you're not doing the same mistakes over and over and over again, right? That's I don't think that's a good way to look at it. You are doing certain things they're done differently. When you do certain things differently, you get different results. Now those results or different results may not be what you want. They might still fail, right? Now there's this popular story where Thomas Edison failed 10,000 times before he got the light bulb invented the light bulb, right? Now what was this? Now he did not say that he failed 10,000 times. He's actually said that I found 10,000 ways to not create a light bulb before I created one. So it is just a thought, it's just the way you think about any activity you do. If it is failing, what is there that you can do differently next time? What did you learn from that failed experiment? So everything, if you consider, is a failed experiment. Experiment not in a very simple and general terms, but sometimes it is serious, right? Now you can actually fail and there can be consequences. I don't say that there won't be consequences. There will be consequences, but what you need to realize is in those consequences also, if you keep your mind open, if you continue to receive feedback, what has gone wrong, what did I do that wasn't working, what can I do differently next time? Because what is done. Past is always past, right? You can't change the past, but you have an option to figure out what you can do in the future to improve your future, create your new future, create your new reality. Because what is gone. So, and consider everything that you do as an experiment that can either succeed, means that you do something, you get the desired results you want, or you don't get the results you want. In that case, what are you learning from it? So that's also one of the core concepts behind the growth mindset thinking. The number 12, the meaning of my communication is in the response I get. Now, a very important concept. When you say that somebody is not listening, when you say that I've talked to that person hundreds of times, they're not understanding what I'm saying. Now, whose responsibility is it for understanding what you say? Is it the other person's responsibility for understanding what you say, or is it your responsibility to make the other person understand it in such a way that they at least know what you mean when you say something? So your communication, now in here, communication doesn't mean just verbal, right? It's just not the words. It can be the tone of your voice, right? Now, if you are shouting at somebody, that person could either cower down or they might shout back. Now, what does that mean? Right? So that means there is feedback, one, right? Secondly, your communication, the way you are communicating, may not be appropriate. So you need to understand. So how you get a response determines how good your communication is. Also, your body language can be different. Now, consider this. Suppose you were in a party and somebody cracked a joke or something, and and people started laughing around you. What happens when you start laughing? People around you start get happier as well, right? You can start laughing for no reason, right? And what will happen is slowly people will actually catch on to that and they will start laughing, because laughter is a kind of a behavior that evokes that kind of response, right? Now if you're really excited out, if you're excited out of fear or excited out of happiness, both of them get a different response, right? So it's it's like the communication is, one, definitely verbal. Second, it can be based on how you say it, right? It can be a question. You can say it in a question way, like, "Do you know?" Or you could actually say it as a statement, like, "Do you know what I'm saying?" Like that, right? Or you can actually that's a command, and that's a command tonality, right? So there is a way to actually say certain things. Whenever you say certain things, you will get a response back. Always you will get a response back from the other side. Now if you don't get a response back, that means you've not communicated. That's plain and simple. But the other way around is, if you're saying something and the other person just runs away, that's also feedback. That's the way you're communicating. And if you're getting a response you want, that means you're communicating. That's also a way of talking to somebody. So I hope I have been able to clear this. Now, number 13. It's also in NLP terms, it's called as law of requisite variety. Okay? I had to mention this because it is a NLP term, but it actually says that people or systems with the most flexibility of behavior control the system. Now, what does this mean? This means that if you are the flexibility of your thinking can determine how the system behaves with you. Now, how many times have you had in the past where you were flexible and you got what you want, versus you were rigid, you were stubborn about something, and you started getting a different response? You got resistance back. Has that happened to you? I'm sure it has. It's happened to me so many times, right? Now, what do we learn from that, right? Again, meaning of communication is the response I get, right? Now, what do I learn from that? If I am flexible in my behavior, people will be flexible in their behavior. And when they are flexible, we can actually navigate through and get the results we want. Perception is projection. All of these are interrelated, right? So a very common thing I talk about is it's the change, right? Everything around us is changing. Even our human body. If you consider your human body, right, changes every 6 weeks. Now, I've read this somewhere that every our human body regenerates itself every 6 weeks. So every cell in the body regenerates every 6 weeks. Now, that means change is part of nature, right? Now, if you consider the change as a river, right? Now, a river rapid. Now, consider as a river rapid as change is flowing. Now, if you want to go and change your direction in the river rapid, what is the better way to do it? Do you want to change your behavior? And if change is coming and you're resisting change, consider change as a river rapid. It is going to come anyways, right? It's coming to you. You have an option to go down along with the rapid, and then you'll be able to flexibly change along with the flow. You can probably move left or move right. It's going to be hard, absolutely. It's going to be easy, right? It's going to be hard. You can, but still you can go with the flow, right? Or consider that a very heavy, a strong wind is blowing, right? People who don't like rivers or don't like to be in water, if you consider a very fast wind is pushing you, right? Now, if you go against the wind, is it difficult to navigate, or is it difficult to navigate when you're going with the wind, right? Yes, you're getting a push from the behind, but you can still move left and right easily. So that's the idea behind this particular presupposition, is that if you are flexible in your behavior, the system will be flexible and you can actually navigate through it. You can find out more options to suit your thinking and suit how you want to get your results rather than being resistant to it. And the last one, all procedures should be designed to increase choice. Now, I had written something earlier where I said that I don't believe that a person has one destiny. A person has multiple destinies depending on what choices the person makes, right? Now, why I bring that up here is because we always have a choice. Now, our choices are reduced by making decisions. If we have made a decision about something, maybe yesterday or maybe a week back, maybe a month back, maybe a year back, right? Then our choices are reduced. Sometimes there's just one choice, is that I have made the decision and that's it. But suppose you could think of the moment in time before you had actually made that decision. What would it do? You would have multiple ways to change the situation you are in, right? So you would have more choices. Now, how neurolinguistic programming helps here is it helps you think about change your internal filters, change your the way you delete, change the way you distort, change the way you generalize, change help you understand what your beliefs are, what your values are, what are your attitudes, right? How can you change them, right? Now, when you have that flexibility, how can you change your communication? When you have that flexibility, you have more choices. When you have more choices, you can get more out of the system. So again, number 13, people system with most flexibility of behavior, control the system, right? So the more choices you have, the more options you have to make the get the results you want. So and neurolinguistic programming, and I will talk more about in the upcoming sessions, is you have multiple ways to change your habits, multiple ways to change your thinking, multiple ways to understand what is going on in your head. All of these are really helping you understand the choices you didn't think you had, but now you have those choices, right? You need to be flexible in understanding what can you do differently, right? For every situation, one, there's always feedback, right? There's no failure. Whatever has happened, but now you have more choices, what you can do differently. So sometimes people are stuck in a problem, right? When they're stuck in a problem, they don't consider all the choices they have. Now, consider the moment in time before you got stuck into the problem. Choices did you have? Do you still have those choices with you? Sometimes we really don't even think about that, right? So this helps you clear your mind, helps you create more choices, and helps you get more control of your life. That's the 14 presuppositions. And why I say that these are the 14 principles that form basis of everything is because if you consider in your life, if you go through all of these, everything that is happening to you or happening with you, happening around you, and whatever you're creating, whatever you're doing, everything can fit into one or more of these principles. That's why I believe that they form the basis of everything, right? Now, neurolinguistic programming is one of the only area of study actually assumes that whoever is practicing neurolinguistic programming understands all of these principles and assumes that all of this is true. It assumes all of this is true. So now for me, I've been doing this for past several years. For me, assuming initially that all of this is true was hard, but we eventually I've been able to put all of these into practice in my own career, family, and in my life, and it's really shown me benefits. So I would really recommend that you go through these. Now, how do you remember? There are 14 things, right? How can you remember all of these? So this is you can, if you remember this particular respect your world word, right? Now you can actually go back. I have underlined all of the uh, some of these terms here. For example, the first one, RESPE, similarly. So you can actually remember all of these if you want, and take it with you all the time, or you could create a card and um, write these down, right? How would you utilize this? I mentioned this last time as well. Review them daily or as much as possible in your day-to-day instances, day-to-day routines. Find out how you, when your heart and mind is not aligned, when you're in conflict, when you're thinking, when you're confused, or when you're heavily emotional, you're not able to control what's going on around you. How can those situations, if you review these presuppositions, how do you think that you're getting different meanings for the situation around you, right? Now they can act as a guide. You have an so how when can they act as a guide? When you have an internal external conflict, when you're having a negative thoughts or emotions, right? When you want to change your own behaviors, and when you want results you desire. So these are four, not the complete into this is something that I've just put out there. There can be other instances where it can act as a guide, but these are primarily where you can really use them. Any questions?
Well, that seemed to make sense. It was a continuation of what we had left off. So yeah, if you start when we start relating to those, and then take up further of these points, yeah, it does make a lot of sense. Um, I guess everyone's already had personal experiences on this, but it's when you put this across in terms in a pressy sentence is exactly what it comes down to for everyone. Yeah.
Thanks, Harsh. Any other
One
questions or feedback?
one question, Chandra. This is Vinay.
Yes. Yes,
Yeah,
Vinay, tell me.
yeah. In this session, we discussed about the freedom that we have, and that might influence certain things, right? I want to relate it with the work situation in the sense that in our offices we are confined to a role, right, where we have
Mhm.
limited freedom and limited empowerment, right? And there are people above you, around you, who are more influential, more empowered to take certain decisions. And when those decisions do not go well, or they took wrong decisions out of incompetency or whatever politics, it impact you
Mhm.
badly, right? And then of course you don't have much freedom to change those decisions. So,
Right.
any thoughts, any suggestions how to deal with those stressful situations?
Yes. So what I normally say in this for this type of situation, it's not like I have not been in these situations. There will always be people who will be making decisions for you. There will always be people who will be making decisions for you, right? How you interpret
Yeah.
those decisions is up to you, right? Things that are going outside of your control or influence, you can't do much about it. But how you
Hmm.
use your own thinking, how you uh, generalize it, right? How you create those responses, how you create those feelings inside you, you're responsible for that, right? Now, remember, you are in charge of your mind and hence your results, right?
Hmm. Hmm. Yep.
You can control. You don't have to react to situations. You can, if you go deep, you can list down what are the things that you've not done that if you could do in these situations would change it, right? Now you can't always do the same things and get different results. So if you're getting a particular result in your career or work by doing certain things, you can't get different results by doing the same things. So you need to change, and it is going to be uncomfortable. It's going to create some discomfort, right? Now it's up to you. Again, remember number one, number two, behavior and change should be evaluated in terms of context and ecology. And what it means, that ecology means you need to make sure that there is a win-win situation. Whatever do you do, is it win-win for you and yourself internally? As it how it's helping your mental and emotional health, right? How is it impacting others as well? How is it impacting your organization or your society? How is it impacting overall planet? So you need to understand whatever change you're doing, is it ecological, right? In within the boundary of ecology, how can you do things differently that can help people out there? Does it did I answer
Sure.
your question? Yeah?
Yeah, kind of. Thanks, Chandra. Yeah, thanks.
Can you give an example of this? Like,
Oh,
theoretically, it seems okay what you are saying, but when we are really in that situation, I find it difficult to just focus on yourself. Like, you eventually get into that situation where you feel frustrated, like why it is happening. So,
Mhm. So,
what could we do
in
differently?
okay, there are four. If you could, what could you do differently now? If it is a, I can only give a generic answer in this forum, but the idea here is to understand what are our choices, right? When you are in that situation, now you already been in that situation, so you need to understand what are the various things you could do, right? How can you influence something out there that will at least start changing things? Okay. um, Specifically answer what would happen if you did make those change, what wouldn't happen if you did make that change, right? And then also look at your blind spots. What would happen if you didn't what wouldn't happen if you made that change, right? What would happen if you, so those four questions that I have mentioned before to you, those four questions will help you evaluate your thinking from all sides. Um, a good example could be where, suppose I am out of my job. Okay, I don't have anything to do. I'm trying to find a job out there, and I'm not getting anything. I'm stuck with doing nothing right now. Is that a good example? Can I elaborate on that? Would that help? In that situation, I have two options. Either I can feel frustrated, I can feel depressed, I can do nothing, and I can probably keep searching. But another option is I can increase my skills. I can use the time to learn more. I can use my time to improve my skills. I can use my time to understand if I when I if and when I get my next job, how can I make the real difference? How can I improve what I have done before, and how can I be better? So that's one way you can actually think differently in that situation. um, Considering Vinay's question, where people are creating maybe doing something different which is not ecological. Essentially, what Vinay was saying was it's not ecological. You can't change that, but how you respond to that is still your. It's still within your control, right? So you can probably keep yourself either quiet, or you can say that out loud to everyone, right? There are different ways. So you need to weigh the options. It's a study of consequences. You figure out what are the consequences for each decision, and then whatever feels most ecological to you in your circumstance, you need to go for that. Always there is an option to increase your skills and move out of that current situation. That's another choice.
In addition to the question that Vinay had put out, in terms of that, something that we did discuss last week is that you kind of prepared for that particular consequences. You already prepare for yourself. Okay, this is what I'm expecting, right? So in both the situations, like you said, and referring that point right now in this situation, suggesting that we know that these are the two options that I have at hand, and either of the consequences I'm aware of, and that this is one of what the consequences would be. Either I'm gonna end up in a wrong decision, I'm gonna be part of a wrong decision, or I might end up not being in the decision, part of the decision at all. So you either move out of that particular thing anyway. So, and either of your decisions don't help you. I mean, basically, you're not in favor of either the decisions or the
Mhm.
outcomes, I should say. That's not the right word for it. You're not in favor of either of the outcomes. How do you deal with that? What would be someone's thinking?
Number 5 on the screen says everyone is doing the best they can with the resources available to them,
Right.
right? So one thing what you can do is, at least you need to make sure that you're doing your best in that
Hmm.
situation. There
Sure.
is no, right, that's in your control.
Correct.
And you need to also assume that everyone who's doing their best out there are doing their best with the resources available to them.
What if they're not? Let's say, for example, they're not. They should be.
Then
Best thing is they should be. That's how they should be doing it as well. But you and them are probably not on the same platform. They don't do the same things that they with their best within the resources. They're just doing it out of some other pretext.
mhm. So
And
what
and you're
is
aware of that.
okay? So what is happening? So when you're talking to that person is resisting. Is that right?
He will be kind of resisting, obviously, because he doesn't. He wants to wait. He's like kind of throwing his weight around. He wants it done that way
Correct.
only.
So number three, resistance in a person is a sign of lack of rapport. Need to find out if that person does the same thing with everybody around you, or it is just you, or is it just this situation? People are
Yeah,
not the
again,
behaviors.
yeah,
Yes.
again,
So
from one person's perspective, it does come back to the same point, suggesting that you just have to live with the consequences because end of the day, it's a resistance that he has from because of the lack of rapport with people. But that's just not yourself. It's probably the lack of rapport with others around him or someone at his designation who he works with. And end of the day, it's just at end of the day how the corporate thing works is as the management provides you some answers with some methodologies, and you have to continue working with them. You have a question, you put it across. If they are happy with it, they'll take it. If not, then they're resisting. They don't like the lack of rapport. They just want to throw their weight around. So that's how the corporate works most of the times anyway.
if
So,
you accept it and you work
mm,
with the flow,
right,
right, it's going to be easier for you. Remember flexibility? I talked about
correct.
flexibility.
Yep,
All
yep.
right. So if you are more flexible and
Mm,
understanding that's how it works, then you
mm.
probably can figure out a way to navigate through the system and create results for you. I don't say that you
Something
same do the
like
same
what a
behaviors they
parent,
do.
as an example, something
I
like what
don't
a
say
parent
that
would do at times.
possibly. If you have an example for that.
Something like what a parent does sometimes. They know they ask the child, no, 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 you don't want to do this, or you shouldn't be doing this. But the child's stubborn,
Mhm.
for his own purpose. It's not a lack of rapport here, but it's something like he's stubborn. Nah, he wants that way, he wants it that way. Then the parent probably says, yeah, it's okay. All right, let's go this way, but then let's try it this way. We do the same thing, but
Mhm.
we try it this way. So, for
Yes.
example, yeah, we will go out, but instead of going out in the car, we'll probably just go walking out, or just give them a different method to work with. So, in this scenario, if I'm applying the same kind of example here, then in that case, yeah, you agree whatever he's saying. You try to give him the same results as he wants, but then you give him a different methodology. Suggest you have to dig in yourself, dig within inside
Mhm.
you, trying to find out a different method to give the same result that he wants. End of the day, in a corporate environment, it's the results that matters the most at the method does matter, but the end results matter the most. So you have to dig in a little more, try to figure out if there's a different method to get an answer, and then do that.
Yeah.
Maybe that might help.
Yeah. I also talk about it's not traditional NLP, but I
Yep.
also talk about a concept which is called expectations and agreements.
Okay.
Okay, so we always have expectations with people. We have
Hmm.
expectations with our family, our expectations with self, with others, with society, and with planet. Right. So you want,
Sure.
so you have expectations with everybody.
Sure.
Now, what kind of agreements are you making? So you can expect a world of things from someone, but if you don't create an agreement between that person and yourself, or that system and yourself, you're
Correct.
always going to have resistance, right? Now you need to set some expectations, create some alignment, and create and define some agreements that, okay, you expect me to do 10 things. Can we agree that, depend based on the constraints that we are working with, let's agree that we can do at least these 5 things, and remaining 5 things we can keep it as stretch, right? So then you are not committing to those 10, you're committing to 5, and then you're also committing that uh, do something about the remaining 5. And that, if that agreement is in place, then that's already a sign of rapport, right? So you need to define what your expectations are. You need to define what you need to at least understand what the expectations are from the other side. Now, if you have the expectations from both sides, you need to create an agreement. Unless you do all of these, you will not be able to get the results you want. It's always true for anything, right? That's also, again, when I say not traditional NLP, it's possibly part of some of these presuppositions and principles, but need to always understand that life is about expectations and agreements. It can be the question around job, right? Now, you have some kind of expectations with your organization. Now, organization has principally agreed that they will meet those expectations, but when they are not meeting those expectations or
Yep.
creating agreements, right, then it's a break of contract.
Correct.
Now you have a choice. You either leave it or you stay and try and work with them, create that agreement. So in your situation, Harsh, what you
Yep.
can do is create agreements rather than having a set of expectations in your mind, because nobody is a mind reader. If you're doing to read minds, then you probably are in the wrong place anyways, right? So we need to set some expectations and create agreements. If you can't do that, then it's a consequence that you are responsible for yourself. It is your responsibility to bring the things outside. The meaning of my communication is in the response I get is exactly this. How I am setting my expectations and agreements is what I am getting outside. Perception is projection. It's all related.
In fact, yeah, I mean, that's what when you mentioned about agreements and expectations, I was just thinking it's actually, it again brings back to the point number 3 about rapport. If there is a rapport, then expectation and agreements will automatically come down to there will be some kind of a middle path coming out of that anyway.
Exactly, right?
Yep.
And it also, you need to respect the other person's model of the world. You need to understand what that person is going through. Why is that person behaving that way, right?
Sure.
People are not
Yeah.
their
Yeah.
behaviors,
Right.
right?
True.
Everybody wants to be ecological, right? Everybody wants to um, do the things in a way that feels right to them, right? Again,
Sure.
nobody wakes up in the morning and says I'm going to have a super, I'm going to make sure I'm going to have a very bad day today. Nobody wakes up in the morning thinking like, right?
Nobody does
Situations
that.
prevail and things happen that makes things difficult, but doesn't mean that you need to think of the whole.
Right. True.
Did I
Correct.
answer your question? Um, Mansi?
Yes, thank you.
Any other questions, guys? All right. So next time, next Sunday, I'm going to talk about how we think about awareness. What is our awareness? There are two kinds of awareness we have: the conscious awareness and an unconscious awareness. This is not traditional NLP, but I think it is very useful in the upcoming sessions. I would like to talk about the conscious and unconscious awareness and some prime directives of our unconscious mind, how things work in our mind, and how it helps us do the things we want. And you may or may not have noticed, I am also giving coaching sessions free till the COVID lockdown is there. So no catch, just free sessions. If anybody wants, you can reach out to me. Thank you, guys. Thanks for
Thanks,
a
Chandra.
wonderful time. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Chandra.
Thanks, Chandra.